just because black people made fun of you in middle school for being emo doesn't mean that you have to only surround yourself by predominantly white spaces.
Your black ass should never be around all white people, and you're the only one. You're the only one. I don't know when y'all deviated from the plan and thought it shit was cool and it was safe out here. You should not ever be the only one. Okay? Yes, have white friends. Whatever, whatever. Do you. But to be the only one, it has been seen time and time again that it's not safe for us. It's not safe for us to go that route. That's why everywhere we go as black people, if you down with the culture, everywhere we go, when we it's a bunch of white people, we do that little head nod when we see each other. It's like even overseas. I have been overseas. I've been in Paris and everywhere. Like everywhere we go, we head nod. Like Italy, you see another black person, hey, what's up? It's like the international, hey, what's up? Everywhere you go, you spot. If you're a minority in the group, you don't see, and you know when you feel that difference, that off, when that black person look like, the fuck you looking at, like they giving you the side eye, like be like, oh damn, I don't have community here, but we know it's like a thing when it's just a sea of white and you see it's a community. You see one black person, other black person. It's like, okay. Even if you never met that black person, it's just like it's just a calming, a sense of, okay, I have brethren, I have sisters here. Like, I got somebody. I don't know why that young boy was the only Mississippi at that. Out. But time and time again, stories happen when we're the only. A black person has never fucking hung themselves from a tree, but all of a sudden, well, this boy wasn't unalive in that manner, but yeah. Let's go back to our roots. Let's not do that. Let's have the talks. Let's have our eye out. Let's be on alert. Yeah.
I'm an artist. Full disclosure, I am not fully well today, but I do want to try and stay consistent in posting, and I do want to strike while the iron's hot when it comes to certain conversations. So I'm just gonna be doing my hair and doing my makeup while having this conversation to kill two birds with one stone. One, to distract me from the sadness of the subject, and two, because I'm not feeling well and I kind of have to multitask in order to get things done. But I'm not at all trying to be disrespectful or dismissive or anything. I am not a journalist. I am not a true crime content creator. I will not be getting into all the details of this case. But with the case of Nolan Wells that happened on the 4th of July weekend, there is this discourse that's happening on TikTok about whether or not it's okay to be the only black friend in a friend group and whether or not you should go on like outings and excursions if you are the only one and whether or not you will be safe in those situations because this is the extreme case of what can happen in that type of group based on group settings and group psychology. I feel like it's very nuanced and it is a subject that is very touchy and very delicate. When I say these things, I am in no way trying to victim blame Nolan Wells or his parents. I'm not trying to say that that is what he deserves or what anybody deserves. And Nolan Wells is just the name that is in the media right now. But there's many Nolan Wells out there that do not get any media coverage and nobody knows anything about that, people are trying to raise awareness of. So when I say certain things, I'm coming from my own unique perspective as someone that has been in different rooms and in different spaces and different people. And I check a lot of boxes when it comes to being different. So I have to be very selective with the type of people that I surround myself with. So this is a conversation that I feel like I need to have with you guys because I am an alternative black girl and I know that there is a lot of alternative and nerdy black people and privileged black people that kind of have like a lot of internalized anti-blackness going on that I feel like needs to be addressed, especially in cases like this, because you know how you meet certain women and they will say things like, I can't be friends with other women. Girls are too much drama. I like being friends with men more than I like being friends with women because, it's less drama and blah, blah, blah. There are Black people who carry a similar sentiment about other Black people. There are Black people who kind of have a similar sentiment where they feel like they can't be in community with other Black people because they are different, because they are privileged, because they are different and they kind of separate themselves from other Black people. I have met other Black alternative people, Black nerds, Black people who are into anime, metal, goth, and like different alternative subcultures who kind of carry a lot of internalized anti-Blackness because they'll say things like, I prefer being friends with white people over Black people because Black people never accepted me for being different. They never accepted me for liking anime. They never accepted me for being goth. They never accepted me for being alternative. They never accepted me for being into Lolita or Japanese fashion or, anything like that. They always made fun of me and tried to take my Black card away. And since they don't accept me, then I'm going to go where I am accepted. I'm going to be in these communities that align more with my interests instead of being in community with people who align more with my race and background. So, because of that internalized Blackness, they tend to separate themselves from majority of the Black community and make their friend groups white. And when they have children, they'll send their children to predominantly white environments for the illusion of perceived privilege and connections and setting them up good in life. So obviously, the people that are responsible for the situations are the people that allegedly unalived this poor child, not anyone in particular for like all these other circumstances. But the reason why there's a conversation about, how you should never be the only Black friend, I know a lot of people are going to hear that and be like, but you don't understand, I'm goth. You don't understand, I'm vegan. You don't understand, I like anime, I like metal, I like all these other things that the Black community doesn't fully accept. And I'm gonna tell you, as somebody that is Black and does check a lot of boxes that make me different, that anytime I've been in a predominantly white space, I'm always looking for the nearest Black person in the room. It doesn't matter if I'm in the golf club, it doesn't matter if I'm in an anime festival, it doesn't matter if I'm at a concert, it doesn't matter if I'm at a job, it doesn't matter, if I was in school, whatever. I'm always on the lookout for the nearest Black people. No, and I want to tell you guys that, no matter how hard your life gets, no matter how rural your community is, no matter what boxes you check off that makes you different, never carry, that type of internalized Blackness sentiment of thinking that you are better off in non-Black spaces, because you aren't, because of group psychology. Whenever you are the odd one out, you are in danger. And this isn't just a race thing. This applies to many things. Whenever you are the odd one out, you are in danger. You're far less likely to be respected. You're far less likely to be listened to.
If you're the only Black person in a room full of white people, leave. The same way that I made a video before talking about if you're the only woman in a room full of men, leave. Same thing. You don't see the whites only environment. You don't get that vibe. If they could, they would definitely segregate that room to show you where you are not welcome where you are. I don't think y'all understand how serious it is. That's also another reason why I think Nolan Wells got alive. It wasn't just the fact that people were clearly jealous of him going places. You're a Black man going places. That's unacceptable. There can only be one, and it can only be the one that's the oppressor. I think people forget that. You are not one of them. You will never be one of them. Even when they accept you, you're just someone that they look at as, oh, you're so dumb. And we can get away with our shenanigans and our bullshit because we're not going to do anything about it. That is crazy. You can be put in so much dangerous situations to get laughed at, mocked at, and then God forbid it goes left, because it will. Because why do they even put you in that situation to begin with? They will leave you behind. They'll try and cover up. They'll call mom and dad and the police office that they're connected to and the judge that they're connected to, and they will cover up your unaliving. I'm so for real. Or even if you survive the night and trying to go out of your way to go and tell, they might go and set up a way to unalive you so you don't ever say nothing and try and cover it up. These white people are crazy. You don't know what they're capable of. I don't think you want to be in a room where you were never welcome to begin with. And the only reason why you got through this door is because you were dumb enough not to see the red flags that we didn't like you and want you here. And you're just a laughing stock to us. But a lot of y'all not going to listen to me. Y'all saw what happened to Tamla, and now we have Nolan. Who's going to be the next one? I'm just waiting because I know it's coming.
And you're far less likely to have your boundaries honored and seen as valid and respected. Because, one person can do one thing that is offensive, and if you call them out, you're the villain, you're the bad guy, you're the problem. All of a sudden, the problem isn't the problem anymore. The problem is the fact that you dared to call it out. The problem is the fact that you went against the group. The problem is the fact that you offended somebody that is a part of the majority when you are the minority in the group. So I just want to say, as an alternative Black person, no matter how hard your life gets, no matter how many boxes you check that makes you different, do not be the only Black friend in the group. Do not have majority of the people that you interact with be non-Black. I don't care if you're goth, if you're a metalhead, if you're into anime, if you like manga, or you have a lot of body mods, you have a lot of piercings, or whatever the fuck. Do not be the only Black one. Do not be the only odd one out in any given situation, or whether it's to do with race or not. Don't, like, when it comes to food and stuff, I make it a point to just set certain boundaries when it comes to my food, because I know that majority of the world does not care about my food needs, and there's a lot of ignorance that comes with being vegan, especially in the Black community. A lot of people think that veganism is just a privileged white people thing, when in actuality, it's something that many people across many cultures practiced for years before veganism even really had a name and everything. Like, I refuse to go to restaurants if they don't have valid vegan options. If I don't have a protein, I'm not going. I'm not going to go to a restaurant and sit there and starve and watch you eat. Like, I'm not doing it. I have offended many white friends over the years by simply refusing to go out on excursions with them out in the wilderness. I have refused to go on road trips. I have refused to go to people's lake houses. I have refused to go to people's cabins in the woods. I have refused to go on people's camping trips. I have refused to go, like, I don't know. Like, even when I was a teenager and, I lived like out in the suburbs at different points in my life. Towards the end of my childhood, I lived in the suburbs, but I grew up in the city. It's where my childhood is. But, like, I would be hanging out with, the other people because I was the only goth person in the room, and the only goth people I knew, the only other emos, the only other alternative people I knew happened to be white and Hispanic. So I would be friends with them. And people would get so offended at me because I didn't want to go out to their trailer park and, hang out with them in their home. Like, I'm sorry, we need to be in civilization if I'm going to go over to your house. I have offended people because, I just didn't want to be involved in certain things. And when you're the odd one out, when you're a minority, you have to get comfortable with telling people no. You have to get comfortable with prioritizing yourself, prioritizing your safety, and making sure that your boundaries and everything is going to be respected. And when you're an odd one out,
These cases just don't sit right with me, and they're just too similar to ignore. They're both situations where African American people are with trusted friend groups that are consistent of all white people, and they end up either harassed, bullied, missing, or dead. Like, it's just not making sense to me. This is exactly why when I have kids, they will not be allowed to be a part of friend groups where they're the only black person. Because at the end of the day, it just shows that black people's safety is not thought of like that. So when it comes to situations where there were the big groups of people, I refuse for them to be the only black person, because there's no way that my child's going to be on the 5 o'clock news. At the end of the day, all I'm really saying is that you should not be in danger when you're with your friends. period, point blank. You should not be in danger. So if you feel like you're in danger with your friends, that is not a friend group you need to be a part of.
Because whenever somebody gets the chance to, in a group setting, choose to align themselves with the leader of the group, the majority of the group for, whatever reason, whatever situation, and it doesn't even have to be like a conscious thing that people even do, is like a subconscious thing that's so deeply ingrained and so deeply rooted. Like, don't be the only one. And I have been the only black friend in white friend groups, and I've gotten into situations where I've had like friendship breakups because my boundaries weren't being respected, because I wasn't being fully accepted as a person. I was treated as an assistant. I was treated as the backup friend. I was treated as an extra while they were the main characters. I was just not prioritized in those friendships, and I've had to leave them behind. And I've had to just, kind of side eye people and leave them where they are. People tell me I shouldn't cut people off because you're like, oh, when you get older, you're going to be so lonely and isolated. You're not going to have anybody around if you keep cutting people off. You need to learn how to communicate better and blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, you cannot always be the only one out. And if you are in a rural area that is predominantly white, you need to do whatever the hell you can to get out of that area because you're not safe.
The Nolan Wells situation is why my children will never be the only black person in the group. Never. Parents, we got to start understanding. You know the history, especially a black boy. Your kids should never be the only black person in the group. Now, I pray they find Nolan Wells alive and well, because this is just sad. There's too many situations like this. And I repeat, never. You never be the only black person in the group, and never let your kids be the only black person in the group. I pray they find this kid.
When you're out in the middle of the nowhere. I know a lot of people, they prefer the country over the city, and the city has its own set of problems when it comes to safety and whatnot. But like, it's just not the thing to do. I know a lot of people, they want to send their kids to private schools because, private schools are said to have better opportunities, college prep and all of that stuff. But to be honest, I've been to private schools and I've been to public schools. And I even went to a boarding school at one point, which I'm pretty sure is probably like the most expensive school that I've ever been sent to. And I'm telling you from my own personal experience, those private schools are not always better in education. They're not always better in terms of like giving your kids the best opportunities to set them up to get ahead in life. A lot of those private schools, especially because they tend to be religious, they focus primarily on religion more so than education. Like the school is like a front to indoctrinate people into religion. It's not really about providing your kids with the best opportunities in life and making them more business minded, making them more individualistic, making them more entrepreneurial, making them more free thinkers or anything. You're probably better off going to an area with a good school district and sending your kids to a nice public school than you are spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on private school education because it'll look good on a college application. I'm going to tell you, as someone that has interviewed for jobs to be like a college administrator, someone that is in charge of selecting kids for colleges and stuff, those people don't really care all the time about what schools your kids came from as far as the high school goes and stuff. There is, a little bit of bias when it comes to inner city schools that are predominantly black and predominantly Hispanic, but those schools are a business. They want to get as many kids enrolled into college a year as they possibly can and collect as much tuition fees as they possibly can. And they want to get the smartest people that they possibly can that they know are going to go far because they want the best type of people to represent their schools, and they're looking in the future to see like what the alumni are going to be looking like because a lot of the school's funding comes from alumni, not tuition. So they're thinking in the future of like future alumni. Like, is this person most likely to be somebody in the future that we could put on our school website and say they went to this school to advertise to the next generation to come here? Is this going to be somebody that is going to go into a field where they're going to be wealthy in the future and we can rely on future investments? They're not really so much thinking about what private school your kids came from, because a lot of times those private schools, those kids end up having to take remedial classes before they're allowed to take official college courses because the education is so behind. And that was like 10 years ago when I was coming up. Not so much now where the literacy crisis is at an all-time high, and there's Chromebooks in the classroom and all this other stuff. So if you're concerned about, making sure that your kids have the best education and have the best opportunities in life, then sending them to a school that's because it's private when it's predominantly white isn't always the best thing that you can do for your kids. It's because you're isolating them from their community. And there's a lot of people that have been talking about how when the parents have been interviewed, the dad said, they don't see color, and his mom is half Asian and they live in Mississippi. It's like, I'm sorry, but the people who don't see color type people are annoying as fuck. My heart goes out to him and his loss, but if he says he doesn't see color, then he probably isn't having certain conversations with his child the way that he should have been, that could have prevented this situation from happening.
My kids ain't allowed to hang with white kids. When the police come, you the one gonna catch the charge. When the hoes come around, and we gotta make somebody look stupid so we can get fucked or look cool, you gonna be the fucking big. You cannot be the only black one. My son has white friends. I'm already trying to figure out how to explain to him that y'all can hang at school, y'all can do an after school thing, y'all can go to the mall. You can't go to their houses and you can't spend the night. Like, I need you to make it home and don't let nobody take your life from you. You can't let your children hang with the white children. It's dangerous. It's a death sentence. They're fucking dangerous. They sold the scam around 9/11 that terrorists looked like Muslims. It was a lie. The number one domestic terrorist in the country of the United States has always been and always will be a white man. You know what's worse? A pack of them. You know what's worse? A pack with Jack Daniels. They're fucking dangerous. Look at the numbers. It's not an opinion thing. It's too fucking dangerous for your fucking son to go on a fishing trip with his white homies on the lake, because they'll come home and say, we don't know what the fuck happened to him. And nobody in the group morally says, well, come on, we grew up with Jerome. They don't give a fuck when it comes down to it because they were raised that way.
Because I grew up with a silent generation dad. Like, he's older than the boomers. He died about 20 years ago. But like my oldest brother, he's a boomer. He's a granddad. He's in his 60s. Like my oldest brother on my dad's side. And my dad, if he were still alive today, he would be like in his late 70s. And I say this because he's a first generation from, the Mississippi migration path that a lot of black people had to make from down south. And I grew up hearing a lot of things that I perceived to be negative about white people. I thought that my dad was just this cranky old man with a lot of outdated beliefs, and didn't realize how much the world has changed because I was still deeply ingrained in a lot of propaganda from the school system. I remember growing up in school and they taught us that racism is a thing of the past because Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech and humanity all came together and sang Kumbaya, and we're not racist anymore. That's a thing of the past. It hardly ever happens. And then the Obama years happened that kind of deluded us into a false sense of security, thinking that the world was becoming a better place finally, and that we were going to be able to evolve in all these other ways because now we have a black president, we can focus on other things like making the first black person in all these other categories as well. We can have all these other opportunities and we can finally progress as a society and start to move away from a lot of outdated things. And then the Trump era happened and it showed us that racism never went away. It was just hidden. It was just not so acceptable at the time. And now we have all this hate that's just so loud and wrong now that proved to be, not true. Like, no, racism is not ending, it's not over, it's not a thing of the past, it's something that we still have to be very much aware of. So, yeah, like my heart goes out to his family and other families that have dealt with similar things. There's so many people on TikTok that have come out with horror stories about how they were the only Black person in the friend group and they went out on some type of outing, some type of excursion, and they were in danger and, they came like this close to dying, or they witnessed something like that happening and just saying like how dangerous it is.
I want you to take a look at this video with me real quick.
Went shopping, and on the way back, his friend said, I have a joke, but I can't tell it because Shari's in the car. And Wayne and his friend, this is how locked in I was. They said, you can tell it. Shari is cool. She's not going to get offended like that. And y'all know his friend said, what are the similarities between a Black woman and a vagina? And the answer was, they both have kinky hair, big lips, and stink. And all of these white boys in the car started laughing, including the white boy that liked me. And I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I was stuck because I really thought these white kids weren't racist. My stepfather had been telling me the whole time, like, they ain't your real friends, they this, they that. And I was like, no, they're not, no, they're not. And y'all, when I got out that car, I ran into my house crying. And my stepfather came downstairs and was like, what is wrong? My stepfather gave me a book called The Brodophile that I read over the weekend. I came to school on a Monday and started kicking it to my white friends that I think that Jesus may be a Black man and all those type of things. It switched up on me real quick. When I refused to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, those white friends that I thought were my friends since 9th grade and they loved me and everything, all that switched up. I mean, I was locked in. Where they would want me to sleep over their house, I'd be the only Black girl in the friend group, but my mother was always very cautious. No disrespect, because oftentimes those white families were much more lackadaisical. Their children would be smoking, drinking, and things like that. My curfew was 9 o'clock at 11th grade. So my mother didn't play around like their parents had leeway for them. And the last straw for me was when I realized my white friends would not be uncomfortable for me. They didn't think it was uncomfortable for me to be hanging out with them and be the only Black girl with them at their house, with their friends, even sometimes being around friends that they knew and would say, oh yeah, her parents are racist and this and that. And they still would think that I should be comfortable around them. I'll never forget, I asked them to go to Iverson Mall with me. And anyone in the DMV,
I thought this video was so interesting for many reasons. I had recently watched the film Slanted. It's about an Asian American girl experience living in America. But I thought it was so interesting to watch that film and to just think about what us minorities, us people of color, Black people go through living in America and having race relations with white people. Black people, what I'm about to say, I need you to lean in close, please. We have to understand that we don't know what they learn specifically culturally in their homes amongst themselves about our communities. That goes for Asian, Latinos, Black people, all of us. They didn't grow up in our hoods. We didn't grow up in their hoods. So when we understand that, we have got to understand that we as a collective, as people, need to realize, like, white people talk differently when we're not in the same rooms. As melanated people, minorities, gotta understand, we don't become socialized through the same lens that they come from. They operate in the world differently. They move in the world differently. The world shows up in a different way from them. Just like how we have to maneuver the world differently from them, it's just a unique thing to us, just the same way it's unique to them. I think when we start to realize that and be awakened to that, we will move differently and have knowledge of ourselves. We will move differently. And, interestingly enough, we got to realize, like, they don't get inundated with the same things that we do, like values and what this country values, what this nation values. It's totally different. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if they do appease you or ingratiate you into their culture, you have to go through, like, really, like, some dark humiliation, bullying, like, tactics. They have to shame you. Oh, it's just jokes. Oh, you have to take their disrespect. Oh, you have to be willing to, like, really truly debase yourself in the name of, like, being one of the cool kids or being in their clique. And honestly, if you're willing to debase yourself consistently and be around them and, like, have them trivialize your pain, and them not knowing that they aren't going to actively defend you, honor you, and rescue you, it's crazy to me. Like, I saw that a lot in the film Slanted. And honestly, just thinking about many minorities' experiences just dealing with white people, they are truly complicit in this type of stuff. But at the same time, I think minorities, especially Black people in this country, have to realize, like, this is what happens when you're the only Black friend in these groups. They don't ever talk about the dangerous parts of being in these type of cliques. So, yeah.
Like, I saw one girl post how she witnessed how like they were all like by the beach, and like her and the other black girls were chilling by the beach, but the black boys were, hanging out by the water near, the white friends, and they could not swim. And this white girl told them, "Hey, if you go by the deep end and jump in, I'll show you my tits." And she took her shirt off and flashed them. So they jumped in the water, started flailing around, damn near drowned, and the white kids were just laughing. They just thought it was so funny and so entertaining. But the black girl and her friends, like the other black girls, they were looking for lifeguards. They were looking for lifesavers that they could throw in there. They were looking for life jackets. They were looking for anything that they could possibly do to save him because they couldn't swim either. And luckily, they were able to find a what is it called? A lifesaver, like one of those little circle things, and throw it out into the water. And he was able to grab it and free himself. And the white kids were still laughing. These white kids could swim. They were out in the deep end. They were doing tricks in the water. They did not care about this kid's life. If those little black girls were not there to be like, oh my gosh, this kid is so stupid, let me go save him, he could have died. And those kids would have came up with their own stories about what had happened, knowing that, they kind of lured him to his death. There was another black man who got online and told a story about how he could swim, but he was not familiar with swimming in high tide areas. Like he didn't have any training with that. And he went on like an excursion where he was like going to someone's lake house, and they were like, oh, we're going to take the boat up by the waterfall. They get in the boat to the waterfall, and they all start jumping out of the boat to go swim under the waterfall. And he's like, wait, y'all didn't tell me we were doing all this. Like, I don't like last minute plans. What's going on? He didn't want to get off the boat. His intuition told him not to get off that damn boat, but they peer pressured him to get out. He started swimming. He got caught up in the current, damn near drowned. He's asking for help, and they're just laughing, like, you got it, you good, you can do it, come on, like just encouraging him. And he's like, guys, seriously, I need help. I'm about to drown. I'm about to die. Like, please, someone come help me. No one came to help him. He went underwater for a few minutes. He thought he was going to die. Somebody came to grab him and put him off by the side. And then they just went back to swimming under the waterfall and hanging out with the other kids. Nobody stopped what they were doing. Nobody came to fully check on him and make sure that he was doing okay. They just went back to, their plans as usual and left him like on the side of the creek or whatever. And that's just like two stories I've heard in like very extreme situations that could have ended similarly to Nolan Wells. And I've been in situations where I've been the only black person in the room and something went down and people tried to paint me as the angry black woman in the room. People that I was friends with, people that I went to school with, people that, called themselves my best friend. When things went down and I was in conflict with other non-black people, people tried to make it seem like I was just this angry black woman that is upset for no good reason and they're all innocent. And I've had to cut those people off, and some of those people, they still follow me on the internet. They still like some of my posts here and there. Like, there was one person, I didn't even know they had access to my social media. And I still see them like in my stories and stuff. And I never even thought to check in on this person. But she still would like my post or whatever. And like one time she sent me a message that was just like a crying face with a heart, like, oh, it's so sad that we're no longer friends. And I just left it unread because, bitch, you know damn well why we're no longer friends. We're no longer friends because you decided to talk shit about me behind my back to this white Jewish girl. And when the white Jewish girl started talking crazy to me and I started clapping back to her, you got mad at me. You sat there and let your new friend talk shit about me. And the only reason why she felt so comfortable to do that is because you were doing that. And when she was being disrespectful towards me, despite me being nothing but nice to her, you tried to act like I was a problem, and then both of y'all ganged up on me. And then other people in the room ganged up on me because you set the tone to create that situation. And I never would have put her in that situation. I never would have put that in that situation. If I ever had a problem with her, I addressed it with her. I didn't talk shit about her behind her back. And I never would allow anybody to disrespect her in any fucking way. If anybody said anything about her around me, I would check them. I would not join in and talk shit about her with them people. I'd be like, hold on, that's my friend. What the fuck are you talking about? I wouldn't talk shit about her to them, even if I agreed with what they were saying. Like, yeah, I don't like when she does that either. I'd be like, no, it's my friend. What the fuck are you talking about? But she didn't have that same sense of solidarity with me. When given the chance, when given the opportunity, she chose to align herself with her white counterparts. And she's not even white, she's Mexican. So you would think that there would be a sense of solidarity in that, but no. So, you can't assume that just because you're around a non black person that also isn't white that you're safe either, because a lot of times they align themselves with whiteness too. So you just got to be careful. It doesn't always have to be this extreme to the point where somebody ends up unalive. It could be, other situations that happen, and you need to stay away from those people because your life depends on it. Your life depends on you being aware of not being the odd one out. Your life depends on it. Internally, that's the type of shit that can give you an autoimmune disorder. Worst case scenario, you end up not coming home alive, unfortunately. So you do have to be aware of these situations. So I would encourage, specifically alternative black people, because I know that's who mostly watches my channel and interacts with me, that, just because black people made fun of you in middle school for being emo doesn't mean that you have to only surround yourself by predominantly white spaces. Because first of all, there's a ton of black alternative people on the internet that are very visible, and there's tons of online communities where you can meet other like-minded groups of people, and you don't have to limit yourself to predominantly white people just because of your interests. Because just because you're both goth, you're both emo, you're both metalheads, or whatever the fuck, does not mean that those people are going to have your back when all hell breaks loose. They're still going to choose their whiteness over their subculture. They're still going to choose their whiteness over whatever interests they have that you guys have in common, because they're a white person first before they are an alternative person. Like, their mom knew that they were white before they knew they were a metalhead. They were white before they were gay. They were white before they were trans. They were white before they were involved in all these other, intersectional communities. So I just, would encourage you guys to just really pay attention to people, pay attention to red flags, pay attention to any little situation where you could have a disagreement with someone and they turn against you. Pay attention to people who follow the group a little too easily. Pay attention to people who blindly obey authority. Pay attention to people who kind of have that pecking order mentality. Like, pay attention to all of these red flags because it could just cost you your life. Don't easily dismiss these things, because I used to have a friend group. I used to be friends with this girl that literally made me sick because I was allergic, because I am allergic to perfume and she never took my allergies seriously. And not only that, but anytime I would go to her house, she made sure to plug in all of her glades into the wall, light all of her scented candles, light all of her incense, spray herself down with extra perfume, spray her bed down with perfume, her clothes down with perfume. Um, she would put perfume in her hair, in her clothes, extra perfume, specifically when she was around me. And she thought it was so funny when I would have reactions to it. And I just thought, oh, she's fun. That's just her thing, whatever, it's fine. And I would come home from being around this girl and I would be covered in hives and struggling to freaking breathe, because not only did she not respect my allergies, but she went out of her way to purposefully disrespect them. Like, literally made me sick. And things came to a head, and things got to a point with a certain situation where I had to cut her off and inadvertently cut off our mutual friend that we had because she wasn't even like my main friend. I was actually friends with this other girl that introduced me to her, and that's how we became friends. But I had to cut her off too because she decided to side with her. Like, I was trying to tell her the situation that happened that caused me to cut her off, and she interrupted me to say, "Well, that's not what Melissa said. Well, Melissa told me what happened on her end, and I just think that you guys just need to talk and blah, blah, blah." And like, immediately took the other girl's side over mine, even though I had known her longer. But, they're the two white girls out of the friend group, and I'm the only black girl. And, that's just an extreme case of how I was treated. So no, I was not, put in danger in terms of, at risk of not coming home alive. But those people literally made me sick, not just physically with the whole perfume thing, but like the amount of disrespect literally made me so sick. I was like dealing with crippling, like debilitating anxiety for weeks on end after this interaction. And that is why I have to have the boundaries that I have. I cannot allow people to make me sick, especially now that I've been dealing with health issues for the past 5 years or so. I don't have health to play around with. So people are just going to have to be mad that I don't want to be around certain people. People are just going to have to be mad that I don't like certain people. People are just going to have to be mad that I don't want to be bothered because I deserve to not be sick. I deserve to not be around people who are going to make me sick. I deserve to be around people who are not going to be disrespectful towards me or anything. So, if you got people in your life that are acting jealous towards you because there are jealousy accusations in this case, you need to get the fuck away from them because that could literally kill you. I watched way too many Lifetime movies growing up to know that jealousy is deadly. Do not be around people who say they're jealous of you or act jealous of you for any reason whatsoever. Do not take jealousy as a compliment. It is a threat to your fucking life. People who are jealous of you will unalive you or they will do things to sabotage your success in so many different ways. And I've experienced this throughout life. And jealousy doesn't have to be a logical thing. People can be jealous. Like, you don't have to have anything for people to be jealous of you. Like, you could be homeless and someone could be jealous of you for having a fat ass. You can be an employee and your employer can be jealous of you because they think that you're prettier than them and they're insecure. Like, someone with like an $800 wig can be jealous of you because you're wearing your natural hair and it looks good and they have a lot of self-hate issues and they don't believe that their hair looks good. They're mad that you don't have to pay for your hair. And that's not me saying anything hateful towards people who wear wigs or anything. I'm saying this based on my own personal experience, based on things that people have said to me and the way they have moved accordingly afterwards. So I just want to say, black people, be careful who you surround yourself with. And just because you're alternative doesn't mean that you have to inhabit predominantly white spaces. Just because you're a nerdy black person doesn't mean that you can only be friends with white people or Asian people or just like literally anyone who's not black. You can find people who are of your own race, who are like minded and share similar things in common with you. And I know this because I have. Like, I've never been the only black person in a golf club. And it didn't matter if I was in Virginia, DC, Chicago, the suburbs of Chicago, like Elgin or whatever, like I have never been the only black person in the group. And I say this because people think that goth is so whitewashed and everything. When the last few times I've been to the golf club, it's been majority black and Hispanic, like, and white people were actually the minority. I say this because, you don't have to feel like just because you're different, you can't be around your own people. You don't have to feel like I can only be friends with non-black people because black people don't accept me for being different. Like, you don't have to feel that way. There are other black people in those spaces. There are black people that are into metal. There are black people that are into anime. there are black people that are into a multitude of different things. No matter, what minority boxes you check off, I promise you there are black people in those spaces. If you're black and you're trans, there are other black trans people that you can be friends with. If you're black and gay, there's other black gay people that you can be friends with. If you are black and disabled, there are other black and disabled people that you can be friends with. Like, no matter what minority boxes you may check, I promise you there are black people in those spaces. And you can befriend them and you can be in community with them, whether it's in person or online, and you can actually do both. And if you are in a situation where you don't have any black people around you physically and your only space is online, then I strongly, strongly urge you to move into like a major city, especially if you either have kids or want kids, to prevent things like this from happening. Because this is sad. And I don't say this to blame Nolan Wells, and I don't say this to blame his parents, and I don't say this to blame people who carry similar sentiments. I'm saying this as a warning. I promise you, no matter how different you are, no matter how hard your life gets, it is possible for you to make friends with other Black people. You can find other Black goth people. You can find other Black emo people, other Black people into anime, manga, Japanese fashion, metalheads. You could even find black people who are in bands. You can find black people who are singers in those bands, drummers in those bands. You can find black people who are illustrators for manga, for comics, for other things. You can find black people that are into animation and make, animations, centering black people. You can find black people who are into makeup, black people who are into, different color hair, tattoos, body modifications. You can find black people that are into BDSM. Like, I promise you, no matter how weird you think you are and how you feel like you're not accepted by the black community, there are black people in those spaces. Like, if you're a doctor, I know that is rare, you can find other black doctors. If you're a nurse, you can find other black nurses. Like, no matter who you are or what you're into or what type of black person you are, I promise you there's other black people like you who carry similar sentiments, who are into similar things, and are like minded people that you can be friends with, that you can be in community with, that you can develop relationships with. And you don't have to isolate yourself and limit yourself to being in predominantly white spaces or predominantly non black spaces, because it is not safe for us to be the only one out, especially with our race. It's never safe to be the odd one out on a good day. But when you are black in America, specifically, it is never safe for us, okay? So that is why this conversation needs to be had. It is never safe for us to be the only black one out. And I will continue to decline invitations to being the only black person out in certain situations. I have declined invitations to like goth parties out in the middle of nowhere. Like, there was this one party a couple of years ago that everybody was going to. It was like in a castle out in Illinois, which, if you don't know anything about the Midwest, there's Chicago, there's surrounding areas, and then there's Illinois. Like, once you leave Chicago, you're in Illinois. Like, Chicago is the only thing keeping the state of Illinois blue. Everything outside of that is like sundown town, MAGA territory. You don't want to be there at night. It's not. You don't want to be there with a flat tire. You don't want to be there just wandering around, not really knowing anything or anyone. Like, you don't want to be there alone. I don't drive, so if I were to go to this place, I would have to carpool with somebody and rely on them to bring me there to and from, and trust that I will come back in one piece. I'm not doing that. I did carpool with someone to go to Ren Fair because I know those people, and I knew that, the people that we were meeting up with was going to be pretty diverse, and I wouldn't be the only black person there, and I wasn't. But just know, I have gone to, my white friends get together and been the only black person there in the group, because I have vetted these people. I've seen how they act around certain situations and certain people, not just to do with me, but just online and in person before I agreed to go to their house. Like, there's been like a vetting process before that. I didn't just meet somebody, they invite me to their house, and I was just overly going. Like, no, I know these people from these people, from these people, from these people, and I've been around them long enough to feel comfortable enough to be in those spaces. But I've since slowed down on that over the years because I'm like, no, I'm not gonna go out to the middle of nowhere to hang out with a group of white people, and there's gonna be drugs and alcohol involved, and I don't really know how they're gonna act once they have those substances in their system. And I don't drive, so I can't just hop in the car and get the hell out of Dodge if something goes down. So, yeah, like I just encourage you guys to be safe and be careful and like be hyper aware of who you're surrounded with. You can be hyper aware of how people act. Pay attention to people's micro emotions, micro facial expressions, and micro behaviors and micro interactions that they don't think that anybody else notices. Because one thing that a lot of bigoted people do is they try so hard to project this persona and they want people to believe that they're this, liberal, down to earth, loving type person, when in reality they carry all these deeply rooted sentiments against you. And if you are not able to pick up on certain things, if you're not sensitive to people's energy and can pick up on, a lot of subtle things, you're going to miss out. And unfortunately, this is the worst case scenario. And I don't want to keep seeing these headlines every 2 years or every 2 weeks or every day. Like, if you have Black kids, have that talk with them, whether you are Black yourself or not. Don't raise your kids with this whole I don't see color mentality. Color exists and you need to see it and act accordingly. So, yeah, like once again, my heart goes out to Nolan Wells and his family and other families like this. I hope that he receives the justice that he deserves. But given that one of those parents are a judge, all these kids lawyered up, deleted their social media, and they're not interacting with the media at all. And the mayor is saying, "Oh, I never heard of this case, but I don't think there's any foul play." Everything is very fishy. I am hopeful that he gets the justice that he needs, especially with all the media attention. But given the circumstances, I don't think that he will. And that's terrible. But yeah, I do think this is an important conversation to have. And I feel like alternative Black people don't have this conversation enough because they feel like they're exempt from this conversation. Like, oh, you don't understand, I'm different, and Black people don't accept me because I'm different. Well, Black people don't accept me because I'm gay, because I'm trans, because I am an artist, because I'm a content creator, because I don't want to be a doctor, lawyer, scientist, teacher, engineer, police officer, firefighter, or whatever the hell like the rest of them. Oh, you don't understand, I'm kind of Black sheep in my family, blah blah blah. Like, I promise you, no matter how hard your life is, you could find other Black people to be in community with. And if you are not able to do so in the area that you're in, you need to move. Whatever it is you need to do to move, to be in community with other like-minded groups of people so that you and your families can be safe, please do it. So, yeah, like my heart goes out to Nolan Wells and his family. But yeah, I do feel like this was an important conversation to have. My hair is drying. I'm gonna use my blow dryer to dry my hair and do my makeup and do another video. And I will see you guys later. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.